And welcome to this week's RebTalk as we continue to be with you each week in our virtual Zoom version of RebTalk, I guess. And of course, we have the audio and the video versions both. And I'm David Kellerman, excited to see you all again in some form or fashion. And hopefully, everybody's safe and you kind of dodged this to some degree. If it's affected your family to some degree, we continue to have our thoughts and prayers with you as well. And we've got our athletic director, of course, Keith Carter. Keith's out on are you on the back porch tonight or what? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, screened in porch tonight. Weather's pretty and nice and cool out here, so I thought I'd take it outside.
I like it. Been kind of windy on this day, and hopefully as we get rolling into the weekend, we'll have some pretty days, and maybe everybody get back to the office before it's over with. Hey, before we get going with Keith here, one thing I want to remind you about too. Don't forget that you can relive some Ole Miss Classic games, and several people have texted me, tweeted at me about, hey, put up some old games since we're missing games. And we have done some of that. Hopefully can do a whole lot more of that in the future. But there's some classic games via podcast. You just search Inside Ole Miss Athletics. You can find all the Rep Talks there. And you can also find some classic games. And football already up is 2014, the win over Alabama. The 2014 Egg Bowl is there. They're edited down to a little bit shorter version, but you got to make a road trip, throw it on your podcast, and go for it. 2015 Alabama's there. Basketball, got a couple of basketball games up. The 1998 win over Kentucky that Keith Carter, I got his picture right up here. There he is. See Keith?
That's right.
Yeah, that's my favorite picture, by the way. Keith played in that game, right?
Much younger version.
Yeah, and if you know, he's Marshall Henderson off the floor. I don't know if you can see that. He's got his arms out. And all this. We talked that before. But cool game, a lot of fun. And Keith, I know you're excited that audio still exists out there. The video does too. But you guys had such a fun time together. That was a great one. And a really cool classic game to have out there on our Inside Ole Miss Athletics site.
Well, people ask me all the time, what's your best athletic memory at Ole Miss? And we had some great wins in Tad Smith, that were awesome. But winning at Rupp Arena against, the number 3 team in the country, that's hard to beat. And, that was a lot of fun. As we all know, that was the last loss Kentucky had that year. They went on to win the national championship. Had a really, really good team. But that was fun, and that was Valentine's Day, 1998, which is hard to believe.
Yep, that was a good Valentine's Day for sure. And there's another game up, the 2013 NCAA tournament win over Wisconsin. Here's some really cool stuff. Keith played in the Kentucky game. He was doing radio color in the Wisconsin game at a little bit later date. That was a fun year for our basketball program too, and it's kind of neat we got some of those games up there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a good Wisconsin team. You get a chance to play LaSalle in the next round and had a great game there. Just came up a little bit short of going to the Sweet 16, but good win for those guys. Anytime you can beat a Big Ten team like Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament, that's a good day. So
this downtime's giving us a chance to relive some old moments. We want real games back. That's what we're shooting for. But if you want to get involved with some of those, you're more than welcome to do so. Hey, tonight we got 2 really cool guests coming up. Chris Partridge, who's on our football staff, and a little bit later, Dr. Melinda Valliant, who is our sports nutritionist on campus. And each week we get Keith kind of talk about them before we launch into his stuff. And 2 really special people on our athletic department staff.
Yeah, 100%. Having Chris here on Coach Kiffin's staff has been great. He comes to us from Michigan and is known as just a national recruiter, a guy that can get into homes and win over prospects and mamas and daddies and all those things. And it's been good to get to know Chris. We actually did a donor call last week where Chris and another assistant and Coach Kiffin were on with a few donors on Zoom. And, Chris is just so polished. You can tell how he can go into a living room and win those families over because he's just so good and obviously a great coach as well. So excited to get to know him better and see his role on the staff. And then Melinda, Melinda's been around for a while and kind of is Ole Miss and has done a great job with nutrition on campus, obviously helping us out in athletics. Has been a big part of our success, honestly. And so it'll be awesome to hear from her and kind of what her role is and the way she's helping us get better every day.
Chris is actually joining us from Ann Arbor right now. He's coming down here tomorrow, next day or two, and going to get back on campus and all. And Keith, we've got also tonight, we've got some questions from fans. So we're going to give those to you here in a moment. Maybe they're not too difficult or too pointed. I'm just going to read them and let you deal with it. That's what you signed up for. But no, some really good in questions from our fans this week. We'll continue to do that as we continue a Rep Talk for the next several weeks as well. But let's start with communications, maybe latest discussions with Coach Kiffin. When are coaches, coming back in? I know that last week we sort of talked about a target date to get athletes back. Just what's the latest in all those areas, Keith?
Well, we're still making progress. I feel like there's some momentum. Obviously our state is starting to open back up. Our city's starting to open back up in some ways. And I think we got to be prepared for when we get that go ahead. And, we talked about kind of that July 1 date for student athletes. And, again, that's a date that's in my mind and a date that we're working toward. We haven't decided anything. So let's not get bad information out there. But that's a date that we kind of targeted. And obviously if you're going to bring student athletes back, to have them ready on July 1, you're going to have to get staff back in maybe a month before that, and make sure that, not just coaching staff, but our athletic staff to get buildings the way they need to be, to make sure that everything's prepared. So I think, like you said, Chris is coming back into town. I think these coaches are realizing that it's probably, time to start, heading back to Oxford and start getting their thinking hats on and their working hats on. And not sure exactly when they'll be able to get back in the facilities, but certainly, discussions that are happening now that, we hope we can do that sooner rather than later.
And we talked about how, and I've been dealing with all the people we've interviewed over the last several weeks on RebTalk, how to communicate with the players, the student athletes, especially those that are about to jump into fall sports and all, and trying to keep them accountable and, mental health, physical health, dealing with this issue, being away from your school and all those things. And when you went into that, Keith, I know there was a plan. Now we're several weeks down the road. Has that gone pretty good, you think?
I think it's gone very well. I think our student athletes have been super responsive to their academics, to their coaches as they talk to them. Have 8 hours a week that they can spend with them talking about strategy and different things. The strength coaches have been able to send workouts to them. We've sent the bands and the foam rollers and those type of things. And I've gotten great reports that all of the student athletes have been very responsive and are doing the right things. And, for us now, it's about figuring out a way that we can transition them back to Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly want to be safe. We start and finish every conversation with safety and doing the right thing. Certainly we want to adhere to what Mayor Tannehill is doing with our city and obviously Governor Reeves with our state. But we want to find a safe way to bring them back. Lafayette County has been a safe place for the most part. I think because of the steps that Mayor Tannehill started early, and we've been a pretty good place for not a ton of cases, and we want that to continue. So we know if our student athletes are coming back from different places, that we've got to do that in the right way. And so Shannon Singletary has been awesome. I know you've had him on the show a couple weeks back, but he and kind of his committee have done a great job of working with campus to put together a very detailed plan of how that would work, how we would monitor and test and quarantine and those type of things. So can't really get into a lot of those specifics, and we're still discussing them, but we're going to have a good plan in place to do it the right way.
And this was exam week, and so shout out to all our academic people. I know I haven't interviewed one of those in RebTalk this time yet, but they've had to work through Zoom and stay in touch and make sure the student athletes are doing their due diligence academically. And I know you got to be very happy with that group.
Yeah, Bob Baker and all of the staff over at the FedEx Center have been tremendous. They jumped right on this, and it's challenging. It's challenging when you can sit right next to a student athlete and do a tutoring session, but to do it via Zoom and getting the student athletes to show up to those meetings, virtually, they've just done a great job. And again, the students have as well. But I think what they've learned, David, is that maybe even after all this is over, we may use Zoom some more academically, because there may be a way to do that in the future as well. So, and certainly as we try to, social distance and bring people back to campus, we may continue, a lot of those sessions even through July and August if we're able to get our student athletes back. But very happy with the job that Bob and that staff have done, and they always do such a tremendous job of giving our student athletes the opportunity to do well in class, and certainly that's why they're here.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know. I think our student athletes going to be more likely to want to do TikTok than Zoom when all this is over with. That's for
Yeah, a
sure.
lot of time for social media. That's for sure. I know my kids have been on it a lot.
Yep.
So, but I tell you what, it's been fun. Just following the student athletes on Twitter or whatever it is, Instagram. Keeping up with them through that, and they've been pretty creative at times on there. So it's been fun to watch.
No doubt. Hey, let's jump into some questions. I can talk to you all night. We've got some fan questions, and they're pretty doggone good. Just as Justin Spencer, Keith. I know there's a lot of unknown with the upcoming football season, but are season ticket holders still picking their seat locations? And if so, when will we know our time slot to select our seats?
That's a great question. Obviously we have moved the ticket renewal deadline back to June 15th, and we felt like that was the right thing to do to give folks a little extra time to kind of figure everything out. Their finances, what football season is going to look like, all of those things. But once we get past that deadline, we will actually have the window for seat selection from June 29th until July 15th. And so sometime between that June 15th deadline and obviously that June 29th start of seat locations, you will get your time slot. It'll work just like it's worked the past 4 or 5 years, where you'll be able to go in, you'll select your seats. If you want to move your seats, select parking, all of those things. That'll start on June 29th.
Okay, good. And there'll be plenty of social distancing in that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. From Hottie Toddy Nash, I can't imagine a mama naming somebody Hottie Toddy Nash. But anyway, who was the best player you played against? This is about playing days. Who was the best player you played against? Saw both as a player against competition at Ole Miss and an Ole Miss player, and as a player against competition at Ole Miss that didn't go pro. Blah. You got all that?
I think so. So probably the best player that I ever played against that ended up going pro. I can't really narrow it down to one, but I just remember my freshman year. We talked about going to Rupp my junior year. My freshman year, we went there also. We don't like to talk about that game as much.
We don't talk about that game.
But there were some pros in that game: Antoine Walker, Walter McCarty, Tony Delk, Ron Mercer. It was, for an 18-year-old wide-eyed freshman, it was pretty overwhelming. But it was really cool. Some great players in that game. The best player that I played against that didn't go pro was a guy named Charles Jones. He was from Long Island University, and we played them in a tournament in Muncie, Indiana. We played Ball State the following night and played Bonzi Wells, who was a longtime pro, who was a great player as well. Mm-hmm. But Charles Jones, I think he led the country in scoring that year at about 32 points a game. And I think he got at least that many that night against me guarding him. So he might have had more. It probably helped his average that night. Yeah. And then the last part of it, and if I understood it right, they were asking who's the best player I played with at Ole Miss or seen at Ole Miss. And Ansu Cisse is the guy. Mm-hmm. He played with him for 3 years and just a great teammate, super talented. I've joked about it. There were many nights where we just handed him the ball and said, "Hey, we need you to go win the game," and he did. And so just a great player. So happy for him to come back this year and get his degree, spend some time with Coach Davis, and I know he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, no doubt. And he has you look at him, he has a heart for coaching, and that's what he wants to do, whatever level it ends up being, and how he kind of settles which way his path goes. Very pleased that he made that decision. I know you and him have been talking about him doing that. He just had other things in the way, pro ball and different things, but to come back and get that done and now be able to go into coach, I can't imagine how he's going to help kids in the future, no doubt.
Well, he's got a great story. He came, not a very highly recruited player, just worked his tail off, and, under Coach Evans under Coach Evans, actually he didn't play for Coach Barnes, but, just really worked hard and kind of came from really nowhere and spent about 6 or 7 years in the NBA and another 6 or 7 years over in Europe, and just had a great career. So when he talks to these young players, he's got the validation, he's got the street cred because he's been there. And so you could just see that when he was here, this fall and winter, the guys really looked up to him and listened to what he had to say.
All right, we got from Kyle Smith. When do you expect to be able to bring the coaching staffs back on campus? I kind of stole that one the other day. They're very anxious, that's for sure.
Yeah, and again, I think in a perfect world, we'd want to start getting them back to Oxford here anytime. And if we want to try to get student athletes back by July 1, I think we got to have coaches, probably coming to the office some, doing some things, getting educated on how we're going to have to do things probably around June 1. Again, these are all dates in my head. We haven't confirmed anything with Chancellor Boyce, and certainly he's going to be right there as we make decisions. But we've got some meetings coming up here in the coming days that we'll start talking about a lot of that stuff.
Also from Becky Robinson on social media, if student athletes are able to return to campus in July, will this be enough time to have them conditioned to play at the start of the season, or will the season start later? I know players' safety is my main concern.
Yeah, well, and it's ours as well, and that's where I think we've got to start getting pretty aggressive, and I do think if we can get them back by July 1, maybe even July 15, I think if that would give them 6 weeks. They're not just sitting on the couch at home. They're doing some stuff, but I think it would take some time in our facilities with our strength coach, with our coaches, to get them back into playing shape. So to me, it's that 6 to 8 week time frame. I think if you get much past July 15th, then you're looking at either not starting on time, or if you do, you may be putting your student athletes at some physical risk.
Yeah, all the work that they're doing now, we're going to visit with Melinda a little bit later about the nutrition side of it in this show too. But you're hoping that will get them back here in a pretty decent position when they're ready to run. From when Hutchcraft Soccer Stadium enhancements, when?
Wow, you can always count on Win to put you on the spot,
Yeah,
it's my old neighbor. It's my old neighbor, actually. I think for that one, David, just to be honest, we're probably going to have to push that one back a little bit. All of our capital projects right now are on hold. I mean, that's just the bottom line until we figure out, where we're going with coronavirus and what everything looks like moving forward. I think we got a couple of things that are ahead of soccer right now. I know that we're going to finish the track locker room, once we were able to get back to going. We talked a lot about our softball facility. That one hasn't had much work done to it in a long time. And so that's going to be a priority. And then certainly soccer is going to be in the pecking order at some point. We know we've got to do some work over there. Coach Mott has been awesome. He's done a tremendous job with our program, and we want to show support. But, it'll probably be a little farther down the pecking order right now.
All right, we're visiting with Athletic Director Keith Carter, taking questions from our fans. If you want some for next week's show, keep sending them to Ole Miss Athletics, and we'll get them for you as we can continue on. We're going to do several more of the RebTalk shows. In fact, this is from David Roberts. How will social distancing be addressed in a stadium atmosphere for fan participation and the players at the games? I know that's still probably a discussion, but there may be some form of that, right?
Yeah, I was talking to one of our local reporters today, and again, we're going about this as if we're going to start football, Labor Day weekend, and that we're going to have full stadiums. That's the way we're going about it today, May 6th or whatever today is. But certainly we're looking at all contingencies. We're looking at all scenarios, whether it's a 75%, full stadium, a 50% full, a 25%. Do we have to have 6 feet between each person sitting in the stadium? Obviously lines for ticketing and concessions, and do we have hand sanitizer and masks and those type of things. We're looking at all of those different scenarios. And so, I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't have some form of that, where we have to, we have to restrict in some ways, and maybe we phase into a full stadium by the end of the season. But again, we're going to go about this as if we're going to have a full stadium. We're going to put all the safety precautions into place to hopefully do that. And then if we can't, we'll pivot and go to the next best option.
Okay. And the last one we're going to do this week is from Memphis Revelette. Will you be requiring face masks for ball games next year?
Again, that's part of the discussion. And I think, today if we started football today, I would probably say yes, because that's kind of what we're doing. But, it's May 6th, and we got a lot of time between now and September 5th. And so more information. And I think that's the key to all of these questions about, playing and bringing people back and those type of things is, we're just day by day. Really, this evolves and changes so quickly. We're trying to anticipate and be proactive and think about all scenarios. But obviously, the more information we get, the better decisions we can make. So we'll prepare, as if we will. And then if we don't have to, we won't. But I can tell you this, we're ordering a lot of masks for our staff, for our student athletes. We're talking about, even with Chris Helsel, with Learfield, if we do masks this fall, do we get a sponsor that we put a logo on the mask? We're looking at all kinds of different options.
I got you.
And so, we will be prepared if masks are needed.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's already some cool ones out there. I know we're not taking this lightly. This is a serious deal, but some people have made some really neat masks, and a lot of them have some Ole Miss flavor to them. Hey, speaking of the COVID-19, Keith, it has affected our athletic family. Eli Johnson, our starting center on the football team's dad, got it. He's been through a 44-day battle. David Johnson is also a reporter in our pool as well, does a great job. But has fought through it, got to a very low percentage of survival. And now Eli did a long deal on Twitter yesterday about his dad and how he's fought through it, and that he looks like he's going to get home in the next few days. Still has a very long battle in rehab, but boy, that's incredible news. A lot of prayer, a lot of thoughts headed in the direction of David Johnson. So I know Eli's just got to be really excited that his dad's been able to fight through this.
Yeah, that's just such great news. There was a period, 3 or 4 weeks ago that it was just not looking good for David. And, like you said, through prayer and just his strength, he fought through it and went from a 5%, survival rate to a 10% and then a 20%. And guess what? He made it. He survived. And that's awesome, and I know Eli has, his mother was diagnosed as well. And so Eli's kind of been the man of the house and taking care of his little sister. And, so he's had a lot on his plate. And so it's just great news that David's going to get to come back home. It's interesting that with our new softball hire, David's probably our top local beat writer that covers softball. And
Right.
So, I'm anxious for him to spend some time with Jamie and our new coaching staff. And I know she's looking forward to that as well. So we'll just continue to pray and support that family. And, I know that God's doing a good work with David and that family for sure.
No doubt. Hey, Keith, thanks so much. I know we went a little long this week, but it was fun, a lot of good stuff, and I'm looking forward to visiting with our upcoming guest. And we'll check you again next week, and hopefully we'll keep inching toward getting back to the offices, huh?
No doubt, David. Enjoyed it as usual. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, more RebTalk coming up. Assistant Coach Chris Partridge is next.
That's the sound of rush hour. Hello, recess.
Mom!
Work from home is a lot of work. Even though we're a little further apart right now, we're still in this together. Regions is donating this ad to local food banks to shine a light on them as they feed our neighbors in need. Learn how you can help or get help at regions.com/foodbank. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
Question. Would you rather refuel while earning Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus points on every gallon? Or would you rather refuel while sitting through my sales pitch for an exciting new timeshare opportunity? Interesting. You'd prefer the points. Well, that's proof. People prefer earning and redeeming with Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus over owning a condo that's actually my shed. Earn points in-store and at the pump with Exxon and Mobil Rewards Plus. Sign up today. Terms and conditions may apply. Available at participating Exxon and Mobil locations.
Right now is the best time to upgrade your appliances and lower your energy bill with Smart Choice rebates from Atmos Energy. As an Atmos Energy customer in Mississippi, you'll save up to $450 when you buy select high-efficiency natural gas appliances. So use less energy and help keep our planet green. Call 877-616-6267 or visit atmosenergy.com/smartchoicems for details. Atmos Energy, your natural gas company.
We need the fans, alumni, former players all united and everybody on the same page, which is to win championships. We didn't come here to be good. All right, that's not why we're here today. We came here to be great. Hey Rebel Nation, this is head football coach Lane Kiffin. Let's lock the Vot Saturdays this fall. Become a season ticket holder today. Visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Hotty toddy.
Our farmers work their operations from daylight to dark, and sometimes later. They deserve a lender that does the same. I'm Matthew Raff with the Mississippi Land Bank. If you make your living on the farm, this is your place. Since 1916, Mississippi Land Bank has worked alongside farmers and farm communities in North Mississippi. Come by and visit one of our 6 local branches. Mississippi Land Bank, this is your place. Visit us at mslandbank.com.
Hotty toddy Ole Miss. Now for more RebTalk, here's David Callum.
And welcome back to RebTalk. We continue with RebTalk as each week we've been trying to introduce you to some new people at Ole Miss, and obviously the Ole Miss football staff has got a bunch of those. And so this week we're going to get to meet Chris Partridge. Hey, Chris, how are you, my friend?
How we doing?
Glad
to be here.
We were just talking before we came on that this has kind of become a norm with with everything you're doing as far as, I guess, meeting Ole Miss people and dealing with players and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, you look at this whole situation, and everyone's like quarantined and in their house and social distancing. But I've kind of felt like this is like a connector because we have more time. Normally, we'd be in spring ball and cranking it with our players right now, but we're home. We have more time. People are all learning how to use Zoom and Google Meet, so everyone's getting on there talking football, and so it's actually been really good. I've gotten to talk to and do some clinics with people from all over the country and really connect with a lot of people. That is really cool. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Chris. Of course, most of you know, but he's assistant coach for co-defense coordinator, been handling the safeties too. And he came to Ole Miss after the 5 years at Michigan and spent 4 of those as special teams coordinator with the Wolverines and 2 years as safeties coach, and also worked with linebackers. His first 2 years there, he served the Wolverines director of player personnel back in 2015 from Hackensack, New Jersey. I guess if you're listening to us or watching this, you recognize that there's no drawl there. I mean, No, I got the accent. I got the northern accent for sure.
Hey, and you were the National Recruit of the Year by Scout in 2016. Got it again in 2017 with 247 Sports. I want to talk to you about recruiting and kind of your philosophy there on the show here as well. And the Wolverines were really good pass defense the last few years. And he's coached high school, coached at the Citadel in South Carolina for a little bit. His alma mater is Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania, was secondary coach and assistant to the special teams coordinator there. So Michigan and now Ole Miss on the resume. That's pretty good, I guess, huh, Chris?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Two great programs with great tradition, and I get to work with 2 awesome head coaches, great coaching families. So I'm blessed for sure.
And I know Michigan is in the rearview mirror a little bit for you, but just reflect on that experience and what it meant to you personally and to your career.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Michigan, it was awesome for me. Jim took a chance and, and hired me in an field role, which if I had to go back again, I'd do it the same way because he was just getting to Michigan at that time, coming from the 49ers. And I was, his director of player personnel. So really the right-hand man, seeing how the thing was built from the guts, right? From non-coach's perspective. So, that was a great year and experience for me to see how a program was developed and stuff. And, kind of some things that you don't want to have to deal with, right? Being a liaison with the school in terms of budgets and all that and academics and stuff. But it gave me a good view, and I was fortunate. Anytime I could, I'd work really late in the nights, doing that job. And then, when the coaches were in early in the mornings and whatnot, I got to sit in all their meetings. So I was in DJ Durkin, every single day, in his office, in his meetings for the defense, and the special teams coordinator at the time was John Baxter. So I really got the gamut, for that year. It was awesome. And, and then from there, coaches left, and I was promoted to linebackers coach and special teams coordinator. Did that for 2 years, and then moved back to the safeties for my last 2 years there. So really good experience, really good people. I love the program. I love the kids there. So it was all good. But I'm excited to be take on this new challenge as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Here in the SEC, we brag about our rivalries and the great atmosphere and the huge games. What was it like the first time you walked out there for Michigan, Ohio State? I mean, that's pretty big at both places, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's intense. It is a big deal for sure. But, as a coach, you can't get caught up in that moment. You got to stay focused on the task at hand. So, but yeah, for sure. It was, it's as big as it gets.
How did Lane, Chris, convince you to make the move to Ole Miss? And just talk about your relationship and how you two got together.
Yeah. So Lane, I had talked to Lane a few years ago. He was at FAU and looking for a D coordinator, and we got on the phone and we talked a little bit. And it just, for me, it wasn't the right move at that time. I was moving back to the safeties, which was something I wanted to do, and going into my fourth year at Michigan, but kept in touch. And really, when I saw that he took this job, I was the one that really got excited about it, because obviously I have utmost respect for Lane and his father, being the D coordinator that he was. I've studied him a ton, and knowing that he'd be in the building, and then just being able to coach in the SEC was something that I was looking at. I wanted to take that step and be in this conference. And, so when he got the job, I was, I immediately, got in touch with him and, talked to him about his vision. And, really what got me excited is the vision of Keith and Lane, and, that they want to take this program to the top. They want to win a national championship. It's just not, it's not about, just getting 6-6 and getting the big ball games. It's like, well, why can't we be these guys in the SEC West? And that's that plays to me and who I am, and I like to build something and be part of something special. And then when Lane started talking to me about the staff, I mean, it became a no-brainer. I mean, the staff that he has put together, he had a vision for it, and he knows what he's looking for. So that excited me, even more.
Yeah,
so I was ecstatic.
Yeah, big staff. And, you mentioned Monty being in the building. And I think we talked about this on a show or two recently. You go back and look at his old videos and all the antics he had on the field, when he was a younger coach and all. But, gosh, that dude's a genius, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, there is no doubt. I mean, and for me, it's like, anybody I can touch that has done and been successful at that high of a level for that long. I mean, it's just like anything you can learn, any little piece of knowledge is gonna make me a better coach and a better person. So, he is a genius, and he's great to have in the building, because he tells these stories that are awesome and funny. And but then when it comes down to it, if you got a football question and stuff, you can go to him. He's got all his tape, on his system. I don't even know how they converted the reel from when he started coaching to the system, but they did it somehow. So yeah, it's awesome. And then just to pick Lane's mind, I mean, he's one of the best offensive minds there are. So on a defensive standpoint, to be able to go against that every day at practice and see how he dissects the defense and what you're doing, it's just I think it's just a kind of a special thing to be able to do.
We talked a little bit about the honors you got in the recruiting world, and obviously you got to be at a really good place to have success, but then you're battling all the other high-profile programs and all. Just give our fans just a general idea of how you attack recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, recruiting's no different than coaching a position and coaching a team. I mean, you got to love people, right? I mean, if you don't enjoy different types of people coming from different backgrounds with different beliefs, philosophies, things like that, I don't think you can be as successful as a coach, and I don't think you can be as successful as a recruiter. So I enjoy people. I enjoy getting to know these kids, getting to know these parents, talking to them, finding out about them, hearing about what their thoughts and beliefs are. And, so that's, I think, one big step of it. I really enjoy it. And a lot of coaches don't, right? A lot of coaches feel like it's a burden. It's football, and that's what they want to do. And then recruiting is a burden. Well, I just think that's wrong, because recruiting and people are what you do. You coach, and you're with, your program. And so, I really want to know the guys that are going to be brought in and play for me and in my position and in the program. So I enjoy that. And then, one of the things that I enjoy about recruiting too is, we're educators, right? And, that's what we are every single day. We're tasked to grow young men into men, right? And through recruiting, you don't have to start educating when they join your program. You can touch so many different kids, whether they come to your program or not. If you believe and you love love the fact that you're educating, you can do it all day, every day, with your players, obviously, with your family, and then when you're talking to the recruits, just continue to educate the whole time. So, I feel like I've touched so many more kids, even if they haven't joined the program. So I enjoy it. I get relief. I feel good about that. And then I think, one of the most important things too, and it goes hand to hand with being a coach and having your position and being a father and having a family, is you're always honest, right? You just, be upfront and honest with the recruits, with your players, with your family. It's kind of things that you can live by, but go hand in hand together. So I think my beliefs relate to the players as well as to anyone I'm recruiting. And I've been fortunate to be successful, but, I've also had great people around me that, I trust and believe in, so that when I'm talking to a recruit, I can, have them talk to another coach that you believe in. I think that's important too. I had this saying that, it takes a village to recruit a top athlete, because, as an individual, you can do so much, but they touch so many people in a football program, so you got to believe in those people and have those people send the same message as you.
And I would think too, Chris, we're visiting with Chris Partridge, and one of our new coaches on the football staff. You were at Michigan for several years. I can tell right now, and we barely know each other, you're a people person. And so those relationships continue. I love coaches that, regardless of where they end up, who knows how your career is going to go over the next 30 years, let's say. But it's really cool to see players come back. Also, their parents stay in touch, and you just build lasting relationships.
Yeah, there is no doubt. I've always said to myself that, anyone that chooses to play for me or with me in the same program, I will be there for life. And I've really tried to live by that, and I feel really good about it. I have great relationships with any kid that I've recruited or coached, and their families. It's funny. It's like there's this stigma where, I'm a high school coach, and I heard this a million times. Well, I jumped to college, and it's like, well, now you don't have to deal with the parents. Well, I'm going to deal with the parents, because they're still, like, the kids, when they're 17, 18, 19 years old, they're still leaning on their parents. And if you cut their parents off, you just can't get the relationship with the kids that you need to. So I talk to the parents in my position in the group, and on the, within whoever I'm coaching that group, the kids that I recruit, I'm constantly talking to parents. Now, not all those conversations are great, right? Why isn't Johnny playing? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly why he's not playing, right? And I think the honesty goes a long way too. But I try to build those relationships, for long lasting. And, sometimes it's not all, coach, it's not all what they want to hear, but they respect the honesty at the end of the day.
Co-defense coordinator, Coach Durkin, talk a little bit about him and how this is going to work here at Ole Miss. I know you really respect him.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, like, one of the main points when I was talking to Lane and we were deciding on this whole thing was, I got to make the move. And I was so into it. And as soon as I heard DJ Durkin's name was involved, there was no question about it. It was a done deal. I didn't care about anything else. I have the utmost respect for him. He is one of the greatest football minds that I've been around, but he is a great human being. I always say I was so fortunate that year at Michigan that I got to really work with him. And, he went on to be a head coach, and then, had offered me a job with him. And, it was kind of in the back of my mind is like, shoot, I wish I could work with him again. And this is the opportunity to do it. He's a really good friend of mine, just a good person. And, he's done so much and coached so much in such a short period of time that, I try to learn from him every day. It's a great working relationship, and a great relationship, off football field as well.
Well, that's really, really fortunate for Lane to be able to assemble the people he's assembled, and the interlocking relationships and all are really cool too. Tell me, this is almost unfair to ask you, and I've talked to other coaches about it too, because you lost the spring. You've just barely had any opportunity to see your room, so to speak, live. Hopefully we'll get several weeks before the season starts and all that. Everything's kind of moving and fluid right now. But when you just look at the guys that are going to be in the defensive backfield, safeties particular, what do you think about the guys you got to work with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you kind of hit on it, like we lost the spring, but, the main thing that, I want you and the fans and everyone to understand is, like, everyone's going through this. So we're not going to put our heads down at all. We're going to attack it. And we feel like we're going to be ready and play great defense, play great offense, play great special teams with Blake, running that show. But, the safeties, the DBs in particular, those guys, here's what I'll tell you about the whole defense, the whole team. These kids are hungry. They want to be really good. They want to be successful, and they're looking for the guidance to do that. That's what I felt in the 3 months, that we were with them at least. And so it's our job now to get them pointed in the right direction, because they're like puppies with their eyes open, right? Just like, coach me, coach, right? Lane has that saying, which is awesome, but our guys are doing that. So, that's the first step of this thing, because it's not always like that when you come into a new program. It's sometimes there is some animosity or whatnot, but for this, it's been incredible, and I really like them. It's like, they're sponges for information, and like I said, we're educators every second of every day. So they're taking it all in. So I know they're chomping on the bit. We've gotten to see them run around a little bit. We haven't gotten to see them to play football, but I have watched the guys that have played on tape extensively. I think we got some really good guys back there, some really good players. We got some leaders, some older guys. John Haynes is, going into his senior year. I'm excited about him. Jalen Jones is another guy who's an older guy that, has big aspirations, and I'm excited about him. And then we got the younger guys that have gotten some experience, AJ, Jay. Those guys are playing safety for us and been really, really good and attentive and learning and, all that stuff. So I know they're chomping at the bit. I'm chomping at the bit. When we can get back at this thing, we're gonna hit it full speed and play some real good aggressive defense.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch it unfold. I can't let you go. I'm looking in the background. I see toys and protective rail. You tell us about your family, man.
Oh, yeah, great family. So, like, it's funny. So I came home for 3 days. So we get off on spring break, okay? So I'm like, all right, it's like you're getting ready for spring ball to start when we first get back. So my mind's in a million different places. I get on a plane to fly home to see the family for a few days. I bring a backpack. Okay, so think about this. I was in, Oxford since January. I bring a backpack, and I'm like, I don't even have a return flight. I'm like, I'm going to fly back in like 3 days and really get ready, So I literally have 3 shirts at home and nothing else, right? So this hits, I'm like, I'm planning on my flight back the next day, and then this thing hits, and they're like, well, don't come back yet. We got some, we're this whole deal, this pandemic. So I've been home here, in Ann Arbor ever since, for the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks now. And I have a 14-month-old. I have a 10-year-old who has been getting homeschooled now. Obviously, my wife is here. She's a Jersey girl. I've known her for my whole life. And, her mom, my mom were best friends in high school. So, we've gone way back. I have a 190-pound dog that just sits here every meeting and hangs out with me. So he's a Zoom expert at this point. And, so we're in this house, and, I guess the baby's area is right there. The kitchen's right there. I'm like in the middle hub of the house. So I think the family's ready to kill me because I've been yelling at on Zoom calls pretty much all day, every day. But they've been awesome with it. I said this to someone last night, like this thing for families has been really, really incredible because they never get to see me work, right? They never get to see coaches work because coaches live in the office, right? They do everything from the office. Right. Well, this has taught us that I think we can be home and accomplish what we need to be and be around our family. Stop for a half hour, go eat dinner, hang out. Maybe your daughter needs something, go play, go shoot baskets for a half hour, come back in and get what you need to be done. So I've appreciated it for that. It's really given me that ability and opportunity to do, which we really never get. So
well, I hope they fall in love with Oxford. It's a nice place, cool place to be. Right now, everything's kind of shut down, obviously, but
we're coming down in a couple of days here, so we're actually making the move in a couple of days. So we're really excited about that. And they visited for a weekend, and I fell in love with it. It's been awesome for me, since early January. But they visited for a weekend, and they absolutely loved it. So
that is awesome, man. Hey, listen, thanks for joining us tonight. Give us some time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. It's been fun.
Chris Partridge, he's going to be coaching football at Ole Miss and we're excited to get him out of Michigan. I mean, it's cold up there, right?
It's still cold. It's about 45 degrees right now. It snowed 2 weeks ago, like 4 inches. So, yeah, I can't wait to get into some nice warm weather for sure.
All right, Chris. Thanks, bud. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Hey, we're going to continue with RebTalk. Good to see you. We're going to have more RebTalk coming up. In our third segment, we're going to get a chance to visit with Melinda Valliant. Dr. Valliant is a sports nutritionist at Ole Miss and may have some ideas for the rest of us, too. We'll do that next.
In sports, success is measured in the number of points scored, in games won, and in championships earned. At Shelter Insurance, we measure success in the quality of our products and services, in how we support our communities, in being there when you need us most. In fact, 9 out of 10 people surveyed with a claim would recommend Shelter to a friend. To find out how Shelter can be there for you, visit shelterinsurance.com. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
Hi, this is Gant Boone with Oxford University Bank. You've heard about our Kasasa Cash checking account paying 2.5% interest on balances up to $50,000. That interest could, depending on your balance, pay for an unlimited cell phone plan for you and one other, or pay for 2 gas fill-ups per month for an average-sized gas tank, or maybe a nice meal on the square is what you desire. Regardless, this is real money we will give you for doing 3 things you are probably already doing. So stop in today or visit us online at liveoxfordbankoxford.com. Oxford University Bank, member FDIC.
As annual percentage yield.
Hey Rebel Nation, this is head football coach Lane Kiffin. Let's lock the Vot Saturdays this fall. Become a season ticket holder today. Visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Hotty toddy.
For over 50 years, Mississippi Asthma and Allergies board-certified team of allergists have treated patients in Mississippi by identifying triggers that cause patients trouble and creating personalized treatment plans. Now with offices in Jackson, Ridgeland, Meridian, d'Iberville, and Oxford, it's like we're right next door when you need us. Treating adults, infants, teens, and Ole Miss students. Find the Mississippi Asthma and Allergy Clinic near you at msaac.com. Mississippi Asthma and Allergy, helping Mississippi live life to the fullest.
That's the sound of rush hour. Hello, recess. Work from home is a lot of work. Even though we're a little further apart right now, we're still in this together. Regions is donating this ad to local food banks to shine a light on them as they feed our neighbors in need. Learn how you can help or get help at regions.com/foodbank. Regions Bank, member FDIC.
As we navigate the COVID-19 crisis, O'Reilly Auto Parts is dedicated to serving you. We've been deemed an essential business, so our doors will stay open. We encourage you to buy online, then pick up curbside. Together, we're committed to getting through this.
Hotty Toddy Ole Miss. Now for more Reb Talk, here's David Callum.
And welcome back into RebTalk. We're in our third segment tonight, and not just tonight. I guess you can watch it on and on and on, but we're launching, of course, on Thursday nights each week. And each time in our third segment, we introduce you to somebody maybe you don't see on a regular basis. And tonight we're privileged to have Melinda Valliant, who is the I'm going to talk about the most important thing about her life in a minute, but she is coordinator of sports nutrition at Ole Miss. And Dr. Valliant, great to have you. How are you, Melinda?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Everybody's just kind of hanging out. So you are too, huh?
Hanging out. Yep. Hanging out at home. I think my teenagers are tired of me. But we're doing well. We're all well, and we're making it.
My wife, Mary, and ours are a little bit older, so they're beyond college, got jobs and all that. We were just talking about that very thing. What if they were here every day? I said, oh, my gosh, I don't know. My youngest has come and hung out with us a good bit just because she's been able to. But yeah, it makes you grow closer, or you learn more about each other than you thought that you didn't expect, I guess.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of fun. Correct me on any of this bio stuff, but Dr. Valliant is currently coordinator of sports nutrition services. And she's worked as a clinical dietitian, chief clinical dietitian, fitness center director, and currently associate professor at Ole Miss and department chair, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Of the Center of Health and Sports Performance. She received a Bachelor's of Science in Nutrition, a Master's of Science in Exercise Science, and Doctor of Philosophy, and in Exercise Science from Ole Miss. All three from Ole Miss, right?
All three.
I love it. And of course, she's a board certified sports dietitian, and we're going to visit with her about a bunch of things. Her research, and you can read more about her if you go online and check her bio. But she's been involved in her interest in sports nutrition, body composition, disordered eating, weight management, and her personal interests have been involved with promoting physical activity and good nutrition to individuals of all ages. So I'm going to try to get her into a conversation a little bit later on about what we as the general public need to do all cooped up like this. But more important than all of that put together is that she is one of Jane Wells's kids.
I'm the youngest of 4.
You're the youngest of 4. Jane, many of you, if you saw Jane on our video version of RebTalk, you would know exactly who she is because she's one of the greatest Ole Miss fans of all time, one of my all-time favorites. She and her group go to all games. They deck out. They have a wonderful time, and they're always on TV. Seems like they're always getting on TV or the video boards or whatever. But she is just incredible. I know no baseball is about to drive your mama crazy. Got to be.
Yes, it is.
How is she doing?
She's doing well. She's well. I mean, other than missing sports, she's feeling good. She's exercising a little bit more, getting in shape for football season. So she's, working on her stairs and her steps. So she'll be ready for football.
Awesome. Well, you tell her David said hi. That's for sure.
I'll do it.
Melinda, I guess where we should start is, and I got you to send me some questions and talking points and all, but pretty much what is a dietitian? And, you made a good point before we came on the air. Ole Miss has been in this for a while.
Right. Yeah, and I think what most people don't know is Ole Miss was one of the first universities to start offering sport nutrition. So I actually was at Baptist Hospital. I was trying to think of what year. I want to say it was 15 maybe years ago when I was at Baptist. Athletics consulted with the hospital to provide nutrition and physical therapy and I think radiology. So 10 hours a week I would leave the hospital and come to campus and see athletes. So it was a consulting basis. The hospital got paid for my time, but I loved it, so I didn't care. And I got to come and see the athletes that had a need. And then we were kind of more reactive more than proactive. We saw the athletes who had injuries or needed to lose weight or gain weight versus talking about those things before they become a problem, which is we're more proactive now. But and then that evolved when I came to the university in 2007. I stayed involved, and I was thankful that my department chair at the time, Teresa Carruthers, allowed me to continue in that role. So we really have a strong partnership between academics and athletics, which is also a unique arrangement at Ole Miss. Not many universities have that close of a relationship. And so the Department of Nutrition and Hospitality Management continues to provide the sport nutrition services. It's grown more than just me, thankfully, but we provide that service. So there's still that connection between academics and athletics, which is outstanding and fun.
Really, really cool, because there seems to be, people think about a disconnect. Oh, there's the athletic department, then there's the academic side, but we're really more entwined more than people believe. And especially in your area, that's been going on for a while then.
Absolutely. And we have in our department a master's and a PhD for students that allow them to get a specialty in sport nutrition, which is very rare. And so on Saturday, we have 5 PhD students, our first PhD students in our department graduating, and 4 of them are doing the sport nutrition emphasis. So it really has provided our department, but also those students are going other places, and they've gotten the didactic classroom education, but also the hands-on experience, which is invaluable in this arena. So they've been providing sport nutrition services and conducting research, and now they're going to other places to well represent Ole Miss and keep doing great things. So that part of it is so exciting for me. And I think it's beneficial for our athletic department and athletes. They get people who are highly motivated, high achieving, who are here because they want to be here and learn and do great things.
And you're a lot like me. We're longtime Ole Miss people. I had family teaching in every department, it seemed like, for so long. including my late mother was a professor of theater and yada, yada, yada. So anytime something positive comes out of the school, we just love to jump up and celebrate. In fact, I think if I read correctly, are you guys originally from Drew?
I'm from Drew.
Are you kidding me?
Pam Manning was my babysitter.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, home of Archie Manning, you had no choice but to come to Ole Miss.
No choice. Yes. So I actually, So we moved here the summer before I started 7th grade, so 1978. So I went 7th through 12th grade at Oxford schools.
So how many times, I was going to ask you, how many times do you tell people, I grew up in the town that Archie is from?
Not as much anymore, but I pull it out when I need to.
Well, you pull it out when you need to.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you some stuff about our current athletes. And I've talked to Josie, talked to Wilson Love, talked to Shannon, just in general. And there's good and bad about being at home and isolated. As an athlete, you want to maximize, all your areas, including nutrition. So how are you dealing with them right now?
Yeah, so I've had individual meetings with athletes via Zoom, had some group meetings. We had a football group of mainly guys that we'd been working with gaining weight, so we didn't want that momentum to stop when they were at home. I guess, and so I've done a lot of that individual and then group. And I think the biggest challenge is we had them, because of NCAA deregulation with feeding, we surround them with opportunities to eat. Mm-hmm. And now they're home, and there's, a lot of challenges. Some people are at home with multiple younger kids in the house. When I was on the call with some of the football players, I heard mamas in the background going, "Don't tell them to eat more." No. So I think the challenge is the scenario that, they were kind of thrown back into their home environments without the opportunities to plan for, and not expecting to be there. So many of them don't really know what to do. I have a couple that have gotten motivated to learn how to cook grandmother's favorite, their favorite recipe from their grandmother. So they're doing some of those things. But, part of it is just keeping them motivated. I've struggled keeping myself motivated with my personal fitness. And so if they don't have their sport, then they think, why does it matter? So we've really been talking about just keep that pro mentality, paying attention to taking care of your body, staying hydrated, eating well, trying to be on some sort of sleep and eating routine will pay off huge when we get back, and we'll be back. So it's just that reminder that it matters. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a message we always try to send. Sometimes people only want to pay attention to what they're eating during the season. And honestly, the preseason, the off seasons, nutrition is just as important. So just keeping them focused on the fact that it's important, and then just giving them some small tips that they can incorporate, ways to keep their calories up or keep them down if they need to. Fueling around activity, they're doing some different activities than a lot of them are used to. So how to eat around those different activities. I've done a couple of cooking little demos with some track kids, and that was fun. So some of those things we don't always have time to do during the semester. We might do some of those in the summer, but we're getting some of that done. So I think it's just saying you've got more time. We're not giving you as much food, although we're still supporting them in a lot of ways with their finances for food, and they're getting some gift cards. But the difference is it's not just sitting there in front of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I talked to Wilson about this. These guys and girls are going to really appreciate the facilities we got, even more,
sure.
You would think, because we take it for granted sometimes. I think that we're in the SEC and we got all these wonderful things, and then we've been kind of cooped up at home without those things. Different athletes, different sports, different needs. Do you run like a profile on each individual player that's on this campus?
Yeah, so every one of us has different nutritional needs, and I think that's something that's often missing in the nutrition world. People go, what's the best diet? There's no best diet. So every one of our athletes have different nutrition needs. So we do body composition on every athlete, including our spirit squads, because they're athletes as well, and get a baseline on what their energy needs are and what their body compositions look like. And then not for every athlete, for those athletes that seem most motivated, we write out some meal plans. I would gladly do it for every athlete, but I'm not going to do it for people that aren't going to utilize it. So sometimes they, that's a lot of work to do. So we encourage all of our athletes to attend to their individual fueling plan. And then, part of that's just the transition from being at home to college. Just how do I manage my money? How do I manage my time? So we talk a lot about just individual fueling, but that's an important piece, is it is individualized. There's no, here's a diet sheet, go do this.
Right.
We do feed teams similarly, and pregame meal, everybody's going to get a similar offering. I usually talk with my athletes about who needs to eat a little more and who needs to eat a little less, depending on playing time and positions and those types of things. If we've got Mac Brown eating the same thing as our offensive lineman, we're going to be in trouble when our kicker can't move because he's eating too many wings or something. So, we try to talk to them about individual needs and how to do that at meals. And part of that's just education.
The good old days of if I exercise a lot and I do those things, nutrition doesn't really matter. I eat whatever I want to. Has that mindset pretty much melted away these days? Or?
Well, I say it constantly. You cannot out-train a bad diet. Mm-hmm. You just can't. All the training in the world is not going to compensate for a bad diet. And actually, doing more training might actually increase your risk for injuries or those kinds of illness. So, I talk about it a lot. And part of the challenge is, all these kids are so talented or they wouldn't be at a D1 institution. So we don't get bad athletes here. Mm-hmm. So they've been successful doing what they've been doing. So it's a little bit of a hard sell to say, we need to change what you're eating. Quite often it's talking about eating more, particularly during the day. So typical college students might not eat that much during the day, and then they eat a lot at night. We call it backloading, when we need less energy is when we're consuming it. So having that fuel for the, workouts in the morning, classes, recovery, practice in the afternoon, that's really the biggest challenge, is to get people to buy in that those are really, really important things for us to help you figure out a way to do. So I need a shirt that says you can't out-train a bad diet, because I'm saying it all the time.
I love that. I need one of those too badly. That would be really cool. But you think about each one of them, and if they're serious about their sport, then all of these things that we've been talking about, nutrition, awesome. Being strong in the weight room, taking care of academics, listen to your coaches. When you get that athlete that has that all figured out and they get it, boy, it's fun to watch them just take off, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think over the years of some of the biggest challenges and with athletes who were resistant, I was like, just try and let's just see little baby steps. And then they bought in, and the difference it makes. And a lot of them are in the pros, or one's in the Olympics. And so, just things like that make it all worth it. Everybody's not going to buy in. I've learned that in my years, but I'm going to at least try to get everybody to buy in. And I think sometimes people have this preconceived notion that dietitians are going to say, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Right. I rarely am talking about that. We're, with 18 to 22-year-olds, they can eat a lot. So often I'm just saying, I don't care if you eat the cookies or, canes every once in a while, maybe not every day, but let's add some fruits and vegetables, or let's, increase this here or there. Dairy products are a big thing that I usually am talking about our athletes to add. So I think part of it is that preconceived notion of that nutrition person is going to tell me, not to eat all these things.
Right. Or eat bad things, eat a lot of bad things.
Right. Or eat things that don't taste good. I'm like, I don't want you to eat things that don't taste good. Let's find something that tastes good. Mm. So I think we have to get past that. And I start off usually by telling them, I'm not the food police. I'm not going to criticize what you eat. I'm going to encourage you to add things that are going to be beneficial. Because I want to win. I'm an Ole Miss fan before I'm anything else. So I'm not going to tell you things that are not going to help you be a better athlete.
That's got to help you too, your Ole Miss background. Not that you can't be successful without that, but gracious alive, they know where you're coming from.
Right. I'm in this because, I love it, and I'm happier when we're winning. So I'm not going to sabotage anything by saying, don't eat that Cane's every day. So, and I share my personal, background with them as much. And in fact, we have an athlete coming on our women's basketball team who's from Drew. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
She was here for recruiting, so we got to talk about that. So, I'm an Ole Miss fan, Ole Miss Rebel. I'm not going to go anywhere. So, I try to remind them that. And even the sports that I don't work directly with, I go to most of the events. I mean, that's what I like to do. So that's my hobby, is to go to sports. So I think that's an important piece.
We're visiting with Dr. Melinda Valliant, who's a coordinator of sports nutrition at Ole Miss, wears a bunch of different hats. And Melinda, let me ask you this. Okay, in a perfect world, they're all going to come back. They've eaten well and they're ready to go. It's not a perfect world. We're all in this kind of tough environment. When they do get back, what are the plans to see if they're where they need to be and get things straightened out, maybe, especially as fall athletes, they got their sports.
Right. Yeah, I think our plan is to try to individually, assess as many of them as we can. And certainly if we come back in the summer, hydration is the number one challenge in the summer for outdoor and indoor sports, just because it's so hot. So just to get a baseline of where they are, what they've been doing. I suspect that we're going to have some people who have lost weight who didn't need to. We might have some people who have gained some weight that haven't need to. So we want to assess whether that weight gain is muscle weight or fat weight. So we do a body composition test that will give us that information. And then just, start from where we can safely start and progress them back to, as if we haven't had this break. That's going to be the challenge, is we can't come back in the summer like we've only had a 3-week break. We're going to have to come back like it's been a little bit longer, because I know they've been active in some ways, but nothing like they would have been with their strength coaches. Yeah. So I think we're all going to have to just work with our athletes individually.
All right. I want some free doctor advice.
Sure.
Okay. I did this to Shannon and the others. So
gotcha.
Send a bill to Learfield IMG if you want to. Yeah. But advice to me and the rest of us that are general public that have been kind of stuck at home. What are some easy things? Because we're in the same boat. You just grab things that maybe you shouldn't be eating and what have you. But just a few general tips for the rest of us. So
the number one thing is drink water. I'm amazed how many people don't drink water. And you need to drink water all day. Not coffee till 2, and then water from 2 to 4, and then wine or beer from 5 to 10. We got to drink water. So all day we need to be hydrated. So we want to make sure that that's there. And then depending on how you're getting your groceries, I've been doing pickup orders, which is a little challenging. Yeah. And my kids have been complained a couple of times because we hadn't had fresh fruit in the house, which normally we would. So I would say, when you can, stock up and keep things available. If we've got grapes available, and then we're more likely to eat them. If we just have a bunch of chips, then we're more likely to eat those things too. And I think the number one thing is really decide if you're eating because you're hungry or you're bored or, what am I doing? And is there something I can get up and move around and do, go outside, do those things. But I also think we shouldn't have such high expectations. I've had people go, well, I'm going to use this time to lose 15 pounds. And it's like, okay, let's think about that's putting additional stress. So don't think about a diet. Think about, I'm going to make some healthier food choices. And I never think it's bad to add fruits and vegetables to your diet. So those are always kind of good. And maybe smaller meals if you're less active. Eat less than when you're out and about and moving around. But I think the biggest thing is just do a check, like a mental check. Am I hungry? Am I bored? Have I had a fruit or a vegetable today, or have I just had chips and ice cream? So, try to get those good things in.
You make me feel real guilty, by the way. I'm just letting you know.
No. And then when you cook for more than one meal. So I often cook a meal that I plan on, okay, we're going to have that for lunch tomorrow, or 2 days from now we'll eat it again, so that you're not cooking so often. Unless you have time, which maybe now we all have time to cook more often. But
plenty of time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to normal here pretty soon. And not only with our student athletes, but just our world in general. This has been something else. There's no question about that. Huh?
But I do think it's highlighted the need for maybe home ec back in classes. People don't know how to cook. And so maybe we need to think about getting those skills back. How can we cook more instead of eat out as much? Not that I don't want to support our local businesses, but from a nutrition standpoint, we could benefit from some probably home-cooked meals on occasion.
Smaller portions too, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's especially if you're eating out, you're getting larger portions than you need, unless you're an offensive lineman. And then you can eat it all.
Hey, Melinda, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. This is great, good information. And, I think if nothing else, the relaunch of our show has allowed us to show our fans, and you and our fans, how detailed, all the aspects of what they're doing. It's more than tipping it up and kicking a football and swinging at a softball, that's for sure.
Right. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and these student athletes put in hours of work that people don't see. And I think they're working.
Well, thank you very much. Let's get together when we get unquarantined or whatever.
Sure.
All right.
Sure. Take care.
Tell those teenagers to treat you right.
It's Mother's Day coming up.
That's right. It's Mother's Day. They're going to want to eat something bad for Mother's Day, by the way. You're going to get a diet cake.
Yeah, I might camp out or something for Mother's Day.
All right, Dr. Melinda Valliant, thank you very much.
Thanks a bunch.
We'll wrap it up on RebTalk this week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.